Hello, everyone, and welcome to this pre-recorded art brunch. I normally give live presentations every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, but of course, my schedule won't allow it, as I indicated earlier. So this is pre-recorded, but hopefully you'll find it meaningful as well, even if we don't have an opportunity for Q&A at the end. On this East Coast tour of the great museums, I didn't know what to expect as far as restrictions. Would masks be required in the buildings? Would social distancing be enforced? Well, I was pleased to find out that for those vaccinated like myself, it was back to business as usual. The pandemic in the Western Hemisphere, particularly the US, is petering out, it appears. And with that reality, a question now lies before all of us. Now what? It's the same question we've entertained at every transition in our life, whether it was divorce, loss of job, retirement, and now pandemic. Now what? There are a few barriers presently to our getting along with life in a relatively normal way. How will we get back in the game, so to speak? How will we make our difference? How will we pursue meaning now that our world is opening up again? Well, this presentation is for those of us who are still seeking clarity around our mission, our next big project for the next 6 months, the next year, maybe longer than that. And it's also for those of us who actually know our next move, but aren't playing big enough, who are settling for making less of an impact than we could. There are answers for both groups of people. Some clues to those answers I discovered during my visits to the great art museums back east. My first stop was at the National Gallery in Washington, D.C. After gorging on the French and Dutch masters, I moved to the English collection. And there I stopped in front of the works of my favorite English painter, J.M.W. Turner. Joseph Mallard William Turner, whose dates are 1775 to 1851, was born to a working class family. His father was a barber. Now, his mother suffered from mental illness all of Turner's childhood and young adulthood before she died in 1804 when Turner was about 29. And so Turner came of age in very humble circumstances. Now, his father was very supportive of his son's artistic ambitions, proudly displaying his son's art on the walls of his barbershop. He even sold some of that art. He needed to sell some of that art to provide for his family. Now, despite having little resources, Turner's obvious talent led to his enrolling in the Royal Academy schools when he was 14, a very prestigious institution for aspiring artists. Turner was exceptional from the start. His artistic philosophy could be summed up in this quote from him: "My business is to paint what I see, not what I know is there." He painted this watercolor when he was about 17 or 18. So you could see he was very gifted from the start. At the age of 20 or 21, he had his first exhibited painting, Fisherman at Sea, at the Royal Academy. His amazing talent is obvious in this work. It was this talent that helped him overcome the prejudice and classism of his fellow students and teachers. You see, Turner spoke with a Cockney accent, which was a sign of low class in those days, and even up to recent years in England, for that matter. William Turner, as his colleagues referred to him, didn't try to change his accent, but dared from the start to be himself with no apologies. Many artists have this tendency and have developed a reputation for eccentricity and disagreeableness for this reason. But the best artists have skin as thick as an alligator's. They don't care what society thinks of them, as long as they remain creatively vital, as long as they still experience the whisper of the muse. At a very young age, he came to the attention of a wealthy landowner, Walter Fox. Fox not only became an eager patron of Turner, but a mentor and friend as well. When Turner was only 22, Fox commissioned several works from the artist. Fox's grand estate, Farnley Hall, which you see on the right, became a second home to Turner. Not a bad place to hang out. Now, Turner lived during an amazing period. He lived during the Napoleonic Wars, England and France's expansion of their empires. He witnessed the abolition of slavery in the British colonies, as well as witnessing the Industrial Revolution, both the good the bad and the ugly of it. Now, William Turner is classified as a romantic artist. The Romantics were known to glorify the natural world, juxtaposing it to the harshness and ugliness of the modern industrial world. But Turner didn't see it that way. He saw industry in a positive light, as we will see. One of the benefits of the industrial age Turner took full advantage of. Due to steamships and the development of the railways, opportunities for travel abounded. Turner was a traveler and considered it essential to his development as an artist. So in 1802, he visited France and Switzerland, and on his way back, spent many hours studying the works at the Louvre in Paris. He was drawn to works by the Dutch masters who painted wild and violent seas, like this work by Jacob van Ruysdael. Here's a masterpiece he created just after returning from his trip. When you can vividly express the power of the ocean through art, you won't lack for buyers. Now, some art critics responded that Turner's depictions of the water were too solid, that he needed to express the translucent quality of the sea. But Turner didn't care what the critics said, and he didn't change how he depicted stormy seas. He was after the powerful impact his works created in the viewer. That is all he cared about. And remember his philosophy. My business is to paint what I see, not what I know is there. Turner saw solidity and raw power in the sea. In 1819 and 1820, he traveled to Italy, staying primarily in Rome and Venice. Ah, Venice. The water city captivated him, as it does so many of us. I was fortunate to see some powerful works by Turner during my trip. Adjacent to one another at the National Gallery in Washington, D.C. are two paintings of Venice. The first, which you see here, is simply breathtaking in its beauty, really mesmerizing. We immediately admire the light, the way it reflects off the buildings and the water. It's so lovely this painting could be used on a travel brochure. Who wouldn't want to visit Venice after seeing this painting? Next to it on the adjacent wall is another image of Venice, but this one quite different. Approach to Venice was completed 10 years after the previous painting. Here, Turner has masterfully captured the celestial light, the initial hit of the spirit of the place on the senses. Later in his career, Venice became like a mystical muse for Turner. In this work, we also see how Turner's style changed later in his career. It is not only impressionistic, but expressionistic. He has reduced the landscape to pure sensation, and in doing so, given us an image of pure spiritual vitality. This work also reveals Turner's fascination with the effect of color on our emotions. Turner studied the color theories of Johann von Goethe, who had written a seminal work on color theory. Now, few before Goethe had really examined how color affects us psychologically, how we actually see color, process what we see, and transmute what we see into emotion. Now, it seems obvious that different colors and shades affect us differently, at least it seems obvious now, but not during the 18th century. Goethe was one of the first to explore our relationship to color, and Turner, as well as many artists, became Goethe's eager student. Turner was obsessed with the basic elements of fire, air, and water. Through his brush, through his use of color, he could use these elements to create highly impactful art that made him feel akin to the gods. There was one common response to Turner's works: awe. Another major influence on Turner was this 17th century French artist, Claude Lorrain. Claude painted mythical and historical scenes mainly. Here we see a biblical subject, the Queen of Sheba, arriving at a port in ancient Israel. Now take a close look at the composition before I show you Turner's modern version of a port scene. Take a good look. This work I also had the privilege to see at the National Gallery in DC. Notice how different it is to the clawed work. Here we see coal burning on the right, the new fuel for the industrial age. Now, yes, the painting is dark compared to the clawed work, but it isn't a darkness expressing a negative view of industry. Look at how bright the moon is illuminating the entire center of the work. The coal-fired steam engine will make all those sailing vessels you see obsolete. Turner believes in the possibilities of his time. What can we achieve when we harness new technology? This work leaves me almost speechless. It's stunning. When you could create an image like this one, you won't lack for money, and Turner became wealthy through his art. Take a moment to look at this painting. What is this sensation we experience when viewing such a work? What is it? Well, it's energy bubbling up in the body. It's energy in the mind, the heart, and the soul. And this energy is an important signal for us. It tells us we are experiencing something significant and we ought to pay attention. I don't know if there's any one of us who can look at some of Turner's depictions of the turbulence of fire, air, and water and not feel energy deep in their body. For Turner, the steam engine represented the modern world, the innovative, imaginative, technological age where we were beginning to realize our fullest creative and intellectual potential. One thing that is interesting about the works of Turner, he painted many ships, both sailing and steam-powered ships, and there are plenty of examples of sailing vessels under duress and even wrecking. There is not one single painting of a wrecked or threatened steamship. Friends, technology might seem confusing, even threatening to our habitual ways of navigating our world. Some of us even have mental blocks about engaging new technologies. We don't want to go through the work of learning how to use them. I invite you now to dismiss that idea. Technology certainly can be misused, but if harnessed properly, it can overcome almost any barrier and make possible almost any aspiration. Just as we learn to master fire, air, and water, we can learn how to use and master almost any new technology, which can aid us in fulfilling any mission. You know, YouTube has training videos on almost any subject, no matter how complex it may seem initially. So we can learn almost any technology. Now, allow me to move on to other Turner masterpieces that are in other collections, ones I didn't actually see on my trip. Many of his ardent supporters and fans were fascinated with these later works, but also equally perplexed. Some critics were brutal, likening his expressive paintings to smears of lobster salad or eggs and spinach on the canvas, rather than true works of art. In 1994, several works of Turner's were on loan from the Tate Gallery in London for an exhibit in Frankfurt, Germany, including these two that you see, Light and Darkness and Shade and Color. These works are great examples of Turner's experiments with impressionism bordering on expressionism. These works became famous when they were stolen during the night from the Frankfurt Museum. Their theft did have one benefit for the art world. It brought to the attention of the wider public J.M.W. Turner and his experimental genius. Fortunately for the art world, these works were recovered several years later. One of the first things we notice is the swirl, the circle that is the major form Turner provides us with. We are caught up in a kind of vortex. Around we go. We saw the same motion in the previous slide, snowstorm, steamboat off a harbor's mouth. Again, looking at a Turner painting is like receiving a shot of vitality, of plugging into a powerful energy source. Now, I did see this artwork. It was at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. The violence of orange stopped me in my tracks. Now, Turner witnessed this scene. What do you feel when you look at this painting? It's certainly a horrific scene, but it's also captivating. It's even exhilarating. That's certainly the way I felt when I saw it. The fire on the canvas has been miraculously transferred to some place in our gut. We are vitalized by simply gazing at it. Now, I love this painting, even though I did not actually see it, since it resides at the Tate Gallery in London. I wanted to show it to you because of Turner's painting one of the ships almost black. Again, the critics came out, even late in Turner's career when he was already celebrated by many as the greatest living English painter. They said, "You can't paint a ship that dark." Turner replied that he wished he could have used a shade darker than black. Turner wants his works to grab us, to shake us, to make us feel something profound and deep. Art like Turner's, whether it is of a tragic event or something more serene, puts me in state. And by that I mean it provides energy which I transmute into big thinking. Powerful works of art such as Turner's take my mind and stretch it out, as if I were stretching out a balloon preparing to blow it up. Truth be told, it isn't my mind so much being stretched as it is my soul. Now that may sound like metaphysical mumbo jumbo, but it's the best way I know how to talk about it. Energy can be measured in terms of excitement, but also fear. The two always accompany a true calling. Initially, you are really excited, followed in short order by a sense of terror. No way can I realize this goal, this idea, it's impossible. Joseph Campbell said, "The cave you fear the most to enter is the one that holds your treasure." The cave you fear the most to enter is the one that holds your treasure. I'm paraphrasing, I don't know the exact words. William Turner explored this cave opening out of a cliff wall along the coast of Staffa Island in Scotland. You can see the cave just to the left of the line of billowing steam coming from the steamer. Let me ask you, is there a cave you fear to enter? Figuratively, speaking, of course. If so, then perhaps that fear is your guide, and you should pay close attention. I will finish with this painting, which was voted by the people of England as the nation's greatest painting. It features a well-known sailing vessel, the Fighting Temeraire, being pulled by a steam-powered tugboat to a place where it will be disassembled. Some critics view this as an elegy to a once great ship, which now slowly is escorted to its symbolic death. I don't see it that way. Mr. Turner called this work his old darling, so he had a very positive view of it. So other art critics, taking their cue from the artist himself, see it in a more positive light. The passing of an era, the sailing vessel, to a new era, the steam-powered water vessel. According to historian Simon Schama, this painting made people feel happy. He said of those who viewed it that they weren't relying on memories of faded glory when thinking about their country. He said the faded glory was being pulled by an equally tough, glorious, solid, black, energized future. Those are Schama's exact words. The faded glory was being pulled by an equally tough, glorious, solid, black, energized future. When Turner died, England discovered to its joy that the artist had bequeathed all of his remaining works, over 300 of them, to the state. His money went to the Royal Academy of Art for the purpose of assisting, quote, decayed artists, unquote. Such a generous gift to the state was highly unusual for his time. Turner gave the state of England his wealth, the wealth of his creativity so that we can enjoy his vision, and the wealth of his finances to expand opportunities for aging artists. His paintings have also provided us with resources for our own journey. I have emphasized energy and technology while examining William Turner's art. These are resources for discovering and fulfilling our own mission. If we are struggling to find our purpose, the next project to devote ourselves to, all we need to ask is, what gives me energy? Even if it's in the form of fear. It's really as simple as that. What ideas, what activities, what projects give me energy? Energy welling up within us is a message from the universe. It tells us when we are on the right path. And if what energizes us also terrifies us, then we know for certain we are on the right path. We just need to realize that any technology we need to fulfill that idea or project is available to us. Well, next week, we will continue mining art as a resource and guide for our journey. Until then, I hope we will start listening to our bodies as it guides us toward our purpose, toward our unique path. What do you feel in your body when you think of your next project, your next move, your next mission? Are you filled with energy? Are you vitalized? Well, until next week, let us always remember to make our life a work of art. See you then.